This is something we heard often in yeshiva. From our Rebbe, he was a person who practiced what he preached. He preached very much the highest levels of honesty and integrity when it comes to all areas. And the story that I only read after he passed away about my Rebbe, Rabbi Leibowitz, Zecher Tzadik Livrocha, the Yeshiva of Chavetz Chaim, the following story, a great story. There was a fellow, Mr. Patterson. He was the governor of New York, I think, at some point. This story takes place maybe in the 50s, I don't know exactly, in that time, basically time of the 20th century, around that time period. Mr. Patterson then was working with the government as the person who gave out the money to schools. And if you deserved money, based on your enrollment, how many people in the student body, you would get a certain amount of money. And he was the person that dealt with that sugya in government in the educational system. So the Chavetz Chaim Yeshiva had a number of students, and they reported the number of students. They were allocated a certain amount of money for certain things. I don't know what it was for exactly, but they got a certain amount of money from the government through Mr. Patterson. And after a couple of years, they were getting the same amount each year. I guess they didn't check in every year, but then the enrollment of yeshiva dropped tremendously. For whatever reason, it dropped by a large amount. So let's say there were 100 students, now they're down to 50 students, so the yeshiva felt, we can't take the same amount of money unless we call the government and make sure it's okay. It's probably not okay. We don't have the same enrollment, even though they're not calling us, but we should really be honest with them. And that's what he did. So the yeshiva called, he was directed to Mr. Patterson, and he's speaking to Mr. Patterson and telling him the numbers changed. And Mr. Patterson, of course, was impressed with his honesty and integrity. And he said, yeah, well, the numbers did change. Appreciate that. And we're going to take back some of the money as you want to give back. And they took back some of the money. But the roshem that it made, the impression it made on Mr. Patterson was incredible. Because a few months later, there was another Rosh Hashiva, another head of school, Orthodox school, that had some kind of shaila with money in the government. And they called Mr. Patterson to try to see if they could get a certain amount of money or not. They weren't sure. They would try to plead their case to get the money. Maybe there was a question if it was right or wrong. And apparently Mr. Patterson wasn't 100% sure either. Might depend on the nature of the yeshiva, how it's set up. And Mr. Patterson told this rabbi, he says, call Rabbi Leibowitz. If he says it's okay, then it's okay. Incredible. The Kiddush Hashem, of course, that was made. But that level of honesty, I'm not taking $1 that there's any question about. If it's not supposed to be taken, it's not supposed to be taken. But it seems okay, fair and square. They didn't call me, why do I have to call them? That's not the way it works. The Torah's perspective on honesty and money matters is a very, very high level. And not only is it incorrect, but it doesn't pay. As Rav Pam says, crime doesn't pay. From the Torah's perspective, crime does not pay. If we do something which is less than 100% honest, then we're not going to gain from that. We would have gotten the money otherwise, and now we just got the Avera on top of it.